Begin the current Daf Mesechtas Bava Metzia Daf Pei Vav. Begin 4 lines down at the top of the Yamud, where the Gemara continues related discussion talking about the greatness of certain Talmidei Chachamim, like we were discussing regarding Shmuel and what was written in the Sefer of Adam Arishain. The Gemara begins a conversation about the famous Rabbi Ban Nachmani. Shir's Kospas Bekazach and Chazka turn to the Afachaim, turn to today's Daf, B'schotz Afachaim and Yisrael Yisrael throughout the entire world. So we're discussing today's Daf. We had mentioned the Sefer of the Adam Arishain, which mentioned Dur B'Darshav, spoke about Dur B'Chachamav, those who are going to be the leaders of Klal Yisrael. And our Gemara discusses about Rabbi Ban Nachmani, the great Rabbi, the famous Hamoyer. Some other terms and concepts we discuss are Hakol K'Minig Medina. Everything follows regarding the custom of what the country is, as we had mentioned in our previous Mishnah, which opened up this parak of B'Serchas HaPayil, when you hire a worker. Avram Avinu, the great Suda Avram Avinu made for the three malachim that came to him. So begin the current Daf Pivav. 3 lines down, we had mentioned Sefer Ad Marishan that lists Derbe Chacham of the stage of every generation. It said about Rabbi Reb Nosson that they were Seif Mishnah, they're going to be the last generation of Tanoim. We had Rav Ashi, Ravina, Sefer Ra, that they're the last generation of the Amiram. And now the Gemara continues regarding the greatness of one of the other famous Amiram, Rabbi Ban Nachmani. Says the Gemara, Rav Kana, Ishtoili Rav Chama, who was Bar Barate de Chasa. He was the grandson, the son of the daughter of Chasa, that Rabbi Ban Nachmani, he was the disputant of Rabbi Yosef. The famous Rabbi, and Rabbi and Rabbi Yosef were colleagues. So Agav Shemada, because of the fear of the government, Noch Navshe, he passed away. What happened? So the Gemara explains, they went and they slandered him by the king. What did they slander him? They said, there's one man amongst the Jews, that he stops 12,000 Jews, a month in the summertime, and a month in the wintertime, from the taxes of the king. What does that mean? Because he gathers in Nisan and in Tishrei, that the Olam comes to hear the drashas of Pesach and the Yom Tovim, of Sukkot. So when the agents of the king come to collect the taxes of every single month, they can't find them in their house. So they lose out that month's taxes of 12,000 people who come to the drasha of Rabbah. That's how they slandered Rabbah. So Shadru Pristiko de Malka Basra, they sent officers to go catch Rabbah. They couldn't catch him. Arak, he fled, but Ozli went with Pumbedisa, La'akra. Then he was on the run. Ma'akra, La'agma, Ma'agma, L'shchin, Mishchin, L'trifa, U'mitrifa, L'demayim, Meina Demayim, L'pumbedisa, back home. He was on the run, like they say, on the lam. But Pumbedisa, Ashkechet. Finally, they caught him in Pumbedisa. What happened? So the Gemara says, Ikla Pristiko de Malka. So this government officer came Lahu Ishpiza de Rabba. He spent the night in that motel the Rabba was hiding in. Now, Kriva Taku Kame. They brought the tray in front of this officer. They gave him 2 drinks to drink. Then they took the plate away from in front of him. Now, the demons that are appointed over peers, they harm, Sigmar speaks from Sachem Naf Kuf Yud, whoever drinks peers. Now, the people from the motel were not intending to do this, but they served them 2 drinks. And when you do things in peers, there's a danger of shadim. So Hadar Partzuf al-Achure, his face turned backwards. So Amr Lei, the people from the motel said to Rabbo, my Navidle, what should we do for him? Kavod de Malkahu. He's a government officer. We're going to get in trouble over here. Amr he said to them, Krivu Tako Likame. Bring the tray back in front of him. Give him another cup to drink. And then and then take the plate away from in front of him. But let's say they'll get healed. They did this for him and he was healed. Amay said, made the Adana, the Gavra, the Kabeina Hachahu. Says, I know that the man that I'm looking for must be here. He went looking after him and he found him. Amay said, Azlina maha, I'm going to leave him here. If they're going to kill that person, referring to himself, I'm not going to reveal that you were found. But if they afflict me with affliction, they put me into the torture chambers, then Maglina says, then I'm not going to be able to withstand, as Taisa says elsewhere, like although they could be mice and nefesh, but torture is something that's too much, says, then I'm going to have to reveal the secret. Says, shiur lekamei, they brought Rabbah in front of the officer. Aile l'idroina, put him into a chamber, v'tarke lebava ba'ampe, and he locked the door in front of him. Ba'irachmi, Rabbah davened, he beseeched mercy, and parik ashisa, the wall collapsed. Arak, he fled, va'azu le'agman, he went to a swamp. Haviyasiv agirda didikula, so he was sitting on a trunk of a chopped tree, the kugaris, sitting and learning. There was a machlekes in the yeshiva shalmala regarding a Mishnah Mesechtes Negoim. Mishnah says, im baheres, if the fleck, if the stain on the body, the white stain, koidemis l'sar lavim, was before the white hair that comes into the white skin, tameh. That's going to make the person a tameh with tzaras, because the white hair that sprouts is a sign of tameh, as the pasuk of Yud Gimel. So v'hini nepech sar lavim bibaheres. When you have a baheres, which is a white stain on the skin, and then in that white skin develops white hair, that makes the person tameh. Fine. Now, if it's the other way around, bim sar lavim koinun lebaheres, if the white hair developed before the white stain on the body, tar, the person's tar. What happens if suffik? What happens if you're not sure? You suddenly look at your hand and you see both. You don't know which one came first. HaKadosh Baruch Hu oimed tahar. HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, you're pure. What does that mean? According to what's written in the Torah, it would seem to be that you're tahar. Therefore, it's saying that that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu says. The whole yeshiva shamala, they're saying tameh, the person's tameh. So Rama, they said, man noichach, who should be the one to decide? Noichach Rabbi Nachmeni. We know Torah lai b'shamayim he. Rabbi Nachmeni will decide. Rabbi Nachmeni says, ani yachid ben negoim. He says, I am an individual when it comes to the halachas of negoim. Ani yachid ba'alais, I'm distinct individual when it comes to halachas of tumah, of oil. So Shadru Shlicha Basjeh, they sent an agent towards Rabbi. They needed him in Yeshiva Shamala to come and decide the halacha. But they have a Matzim Malcham Avos, the Mikravle, the Malcham Avos, the angel of death, who had to hand him over to the Shliach to bring him to Yeshiva Shamala so he could decide, wasn't able to get close to him. Why couldn't he get him? Because his mouth never stopped from learning Torah. And when the person learning Torah, you can't kill somebody. Now the Hachi, however, in the meantime, Nashab Zika, a wind blew, which would seem to be the Malachim Avos caused that, to blow amongst the reeds. V'avish bein ikane, and it made a sound between the reeds. Sava, he thought, Gunda de Parshahi, that this was a battalion of officers that were looking for him. Amai says, Oive, teinech nafshi dahu kavra. Let the life of this man already rest. Meaning let him die and not be given over to the hand of the government. So this was really the machinations of the Malcham Avos, but so he was stopped learning, and when Rabbi Nachmani was passing away, Amai says tahar, meaning as a psak halacha in the Mishnah Mesechtes Negoim, that like on the way HaKadosh Baruch Hu said that when it's a suffix, even though suffix derais l'chumra and the homasifta diriki were saying, okay, you should be tamei, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the gzeis hakasam, the Torah tells you, which Rabbi Nachman was saying, that you can be tar. Yatsa baska ba'amra. So the heavenly voice came out and said, Ashrecha Rabbi Nachmani, how fortunate are you, Rabbi Nachmani, shegufach tahar, your body is pure, v'yatsa nishmascha b'tar, and your soul left with purity, meaning, as he was saying the word tahar. The nafal piska mirakia b'pum bedisa, a paper fell from heaven in Pumbedisa, which is where Rabba was the Rosh Hashiva. And the paper said that Rabba ben Nachmani, Nizbakish b'Yeshiva Shamala was requested to come, was brought to Yeshiva Shamala. So Nafka Abai B'Rava V'Kula Rabbanon LaUsa Ukebe. They all came to be misasik, like misaskim, to be involved to go and bury him. So Lahaba Yadi Duchte, but they didn't know where his place was. So Azul Agma, they went to the swamp. Chazu Tzipare, they saw birds, the Metali V'Kaimi. They were making shade with their wings. They said, Shema Minah Hasam, who must be that he's over there. So V'du Tlasa Yom V'Tlasa Leilvasa, they eulogized him for 3 days and 3 nights. Nafal Piska, the paper fell from Shemayim, and it said, Kol HaPoirish Yebenidui. Whoever leaves now will be excommunicated. So Zavdu Shiva Yomi. So they eulogized him for 7 days. Nafal Piska, then the paper fell from Shemayim, L'chula Beischem L'Shalom, you can go to your homes in peace. Now, Hu Yom T'nach Nafshe, that day that he passed away, Dalye Zafa, a huge stormy wind lifted V'Dodela Hutaya, and it lifted up this Arab merchant Kirach of Gamla when he was riding a camel. And they took him a high geese in Nahar Papa from one side of the river Papa, and it dropped him on the other side of the river. Ami said, "My high, what is this?" They said to him, "Nach nafshi de Rabbi ben Nachmani." The great tzaddik Rabbi Nachmani had passed away. Amalafon, they sent in front of Hashem. The Rebbeinu Shalom, master of the world. Kulam didachu, the whole world is yours. But Rabbi ben Nachmani didacha, Rabbi ben Nachmani is yours. At the Rabbi, you're the beloved of Rabbi, but Rabbi didacha, Rabbi is the beloved of yours. Why are you destroying the world? So Nachzafa, the storm stopped. As Rashi says, because when we started this Agadah Gemaras, we were talking about Reb Shimon, we were talking about people that were heavy set. So therefore, the Gemara continues with the same type of idea, which Taisa says, why didn't we say it over there? It says because everything was connected to the previous idea. Now that we finished that chain, we go back to what we were speaking about. So Reb Shimon ben Chalafta, Bal Basar Hava, he was a heavy set person. Yom Echad, one day, it was very hot. He was overweight, and it was very hot for him. He went up and he sat on the peak of a mountain. He said to his daughter, "Biti, my daughter, wave on me your wave," meaning like take one of these hand fans and wave it on me, and like cool me off a little bit. And I'll give you a bundle of nerd, which is a type of a fragrant spice, and which was made like stalks. Now the hach, in the meantime, nosh bezika, a wind blew. Ami says, kama kikrin de nerd lamari dichi. How many bundles of nerd that I owe to the master of this wind? Meaning of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, we have to appreciate the things, the basic things that Kadosh Baruch Hu does for us. We have the natural air conditioning of the world, and he was appreciating that wind. Now, continue the halach of the Mishnah. Mishnah had said that when you hire workers, everything, all matters of employment follow the local custom. So the Gemara wonders, when he says everything, why don't you say it's committing? What's everything coming to include? It's inclusionary terminology. It says Gemara is it's coming to include a place where the custom is that michrach, rifta, umishta, anfaka, which that they give bread and drink with the anfaka, which is a vessel that holds a revius, which Taisa explains that where if, let's say, he says, I want you guys to come work early from Alaysa Shachar, and I'm going to give you guys some food and drink, but I don't want you guys to waste time from your work. They say, no, we only want to start eating from Netzachama, and then we'll do our work. That's one shot. Or there are certain svarim that the girsa is that if he tells them, I'll come early, and I'll come after you guys, and they say no, And so this is what the Gemara is trying to say. The I amaluhu, if he says to them, meaning that the workers were supposed to eat the bread or this drink in the house of the employer before they start working, and he says to them, Kedimu, you guys just first go to work. I don't want you guys to waste time. And then v'aisiluchu, and I'll bring it to you. Go to the field right now, and as long as the food's not ready, and I'll bring the bread and the drink to you. So on that amrulai, they could tell him loy kol kaminach. No, you don't have any rights to do that. We want to eat first in the house. So basically, we're trying to say that no matter what the situation is, that so if it's customary that he serves them bread and drink, he tells them, okay, go to the field first, begin the work, and I'll bring the food later when it's ready. I don't want you guys to waste time. They say, no, that's the custom. We eat and drink first. The food's not ready. If food's not ready, we're not going until we have our breakfast served from you guys. Now, the Gemara brings a story that Meister Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya, we said in the Mishnah. The Mishnah said that there was a story of Rabbi Yochanan ben Masya, as we said, that go and hire workers, and he promised to feed them. When he came to the father, he says, Oy vey, even if you're going to make them like Suda Shlem B'Shaita, you didn't fulfill your obligation because they're the sons of Bava Metzia Daf. Quickly, before they start working, go and tell them on the condition that you only have on me some bread and some beans, and that's it. So the Gemara wonders and says, what, Maisa Lister? You bring a story to contradict? Does a person usually bring a story after what he says to contradict what he said? In the ratio, you said everything goes according to the meaning of Medina. And then you say a Maisa that says, which is not like the Tana actually that says after that, says he didn't have to say because old meaning of Medina. He says, no, even if you do it's like Sud Shlem B'Shait, it wouldn't be enough. Why? Wouldn't it just go based on the meaning of Medina? And that says Gemara, you're right, the word's missing, and this is how it has to say. And if he made up that he's going to feed them, so then as he continued to Amid Beis, so Ribalahan. So then he's increasing for them more than the custom. Because you didn't have to stipulate. The custom is to give. Why are you stipulating? Oh, must be because you're saying you're going to give more than what's the norm. And that's what the Mishnah says. Shmuel said to his son, say, go out and hire for us workers. He went out and he made up with them. He's going to give them food. When he came to his father, Amalei said to him, my son, even if you can make them like the meal that Shlomo Melech made in his height of when he was this wealthiest king in the world, you didn't fulfill your obligation with them. As we're going to mention in a second, that the Suda of Avram was bigger than Suda Shleim B'Shaita, so you got yourself in a difficult situation. So the Gemara wonders on this. Remembers that to say the Suda of Avram Avinu, the meal of Avram Avinu, was Adifa Midishleim, was bigger than Shleim Melech's. But B'Ksiv, listen for a second when the post says a Malachim Aleph. It says, "Vayhi lechem Shloim l'yom echad." The amount of bread that Shlomo made for one day's meal was shloishim kor soilis, 30 kor of flour, v'shishim kor kamach, which is a huge amount, 60 kor of other type of flour, asara baka briim, 10 strong cattle, basara, or the gear says v'estrim baki rai, and 20 cattle from the pasture, umeyed tzoin, 100 sheep, Levad mi'ayil, besides for gazelles, v'tzvi, and deer, v'yachmar, or barburim, avusim, and stuffed barburim, which we're going to say in a second. V'omar guryan ben asitin b'shmei derav, says halalu, this kemach and soilis, the different type of flour that there was, that was only la melin shel tabachim. That was chalas that are made. You take the dough and you cover the opening of the pot, which draws the froth of the dish into it. That's what this flour was, just for the pots, to draw the froth that comes out of the food. Rabbi Yitzchak, he actually says halalu. He says the bakar and the tzayin, all this cattle and sheep, which we mentioned a lot in this pasuk, that was only letzika gedera. That was only for a specific dish, which is called tzika gedera, and it's like a type of like a dessert. From Rabbi Yitzchak, he says elef nashim hayu l'shleima. Now Shlomo Melech had 1,000 wives. Kol achas va'achas asla b'veisekach, and every single wife made this quantity in her house. My time, what's the reason? Because this one thought, Shema Etzli Soya, maybe he's going to dine with me today. This one thought, Shema Etzli Soya, maybe he's going to dine with me today. So you have to multiply whatever we said times 1,000. Even what we said was not everything. It was just like some of the other things. So it's an exorbitant amount of food. Now, the Ilig of Avram said, what was by this Suda of Avram that we mentioned in the Torah? It's a pasuk in that we're talking about the Bakar, that's Avram. It says that Avram Avinu ran to the cattle, the Bakar, and it says, V'yikach ben Bakar, he took one young of the cattle, Rach v'toiv, that was tender and that was good. Now, Avram Yehuda Merav, he says, Ben Bakar is Echad, that's one. It's referring to one young one. And when it says Rach, tender, it's another terminology, but there was a second one. V'toiv and good, okay, 3 chapsalach he came and he brought. How does that compare with the enormous amount of shleima? Why are you saying even if you feed them like Suda Shem B'Shaita, it's not going to be enough in regards to the sons of Aram Mitzvah Yaakov? Says the Gemara, because you're not considering another variable. Hasam over there, Talasa Tayri L'Talasa Gavri. There were 3 oxen for 3 people. There were 3 malachim. And you said there was 3 of the bakar. Hach over here was L'chol Yisrael v'Yehuda. Was for all the Jewish people and of Judea. It says a pasuk in Melachim Aleph. Yehuda v'Yisrael Rabbim. From Judea and from the Jewish people were many. K'chayil asher al hayam. Like the sand that was by the sea. So if you do the math, yeah, each person got a lot, but not close to what every person got by the Sudas Avram. Now the Gemara just clarifies my babur mabusim. You know we say by the Shabbos means baburim, muslav, adogim. What's the stuffed barburim, which means stuffed chicken? So Merav says that they stuff the food forcefully down their mouth, which is how they stuff the animals to make it very fatty. Shmuel says no, shabusim amdim aleim, that they're like they do it on their own. They're free range chickens that just have whatever they need and they stuff themselves. Rabbi Yechidama, he says, "Mevian tor mimarisa b'doloi anis." We bring the ox from the pasture without any oppression, meaning we don't do any work with the animal. And b'tanagoylis mashpasa, we take the chicken from the garbage dump b'doloi anisa, also without forcing it to, let's say, bring up any chicks. You have a person that doesn't work and doesn't have to bring up children or whatever, this and that, so you get very pampered or very delicate. That's very soft type of flesh, and you're not hardened with anything. That's just barabudim, avusim, that was served by the Suda Shleima. But that's why it's, even if you're going to give them like Suda Shleima, it's not going to be like what you need for this children of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. Now, Amr B'Yechadan, he says that the best of the animals is shar, is ox, which was there by Suda Shleima. Is the best from the birds, was Tarnagolas as a hen, which again, that was also there by his Suda. Now, Amar Meimer, he says, Zogso Uchmata, says that a black hen, Beibat Nisa, that has a huge belly, the Mishtakla Bein Atzri, that you find between the wine press, where that means this chicken is eating the grape seeds, the Lematzia Pasya Kanya, that it can't even walk the distance of a reed because of how fatty it is, that's Barbur Mavusim. So it's really, really fatty, oily, geschmalzte animal, this bird that we're referring to. Now going back to the pasuk that we mentioned, because we were trying to say that the Suda of Avram was bigger than the Suda of Shloima. So in the psukim over there it says, V'labakaratz Avram. So Avram ran to the cattle. So Rabbi Yehuda Merav, he says, like we mentioned before, it says different terminologies, and it seemingly each one is referring to another animal. Ben Bakar, the young cattle, the young ox was Echad, is one. Rach is tender, that's Shnaim, another animal. But Toiv and good is Shleish, is a third one. So the Gemara says, how do you know that? Why would you say that? Remember, why did you say it's Chad? It was one animal. Because I'm interested, like people say, Rochich v'tav. It was soft, it was tender, it was good. Why would you say that it's referring to different animals? So it says the Gemara, because if that's the case, lichtav rach toiv, say tender good. My vitoiv, what's and good? Shmam l'drasha, it's coming to say another thing. It was another that there was 3 of them. So the Gemara says, okay, imitate. Maybe say 2. Says the Gemara, no, the toiv l'drash from the fact that v'toiv is with a vav, it's for drasha. So rach nam l'drasha, even though rach doesn't have a vav, but that tells us that rach should also be darshan, and therefore it's not only ben baka, which is 1, it's also rach and also toiv. There was 3 animals. Now, Masav Rabba Ba'ula, some say it was Rav Hoshia, some say Vitim Rav Nasim Bar Hoshia. He said, the pasuk says, "Vayitin elanar." He gave it to the youth. Vayimahar la'asois oisoi, and it was quick to make it. Sounded like there was only 1 animal. It should have said oisam. Says Gemara, no, kol chad v'chad yahav elanar chad. Every single one he gave 1 at a time to the youth, and he made it, and then he made it, and he made it. Now the pasuk says, "V'yika chema v'chalav," that he took butter and milk, uben abakar she'asa, and the young animal, the young ox that he made, v'yitin lifneim, and he put it in front of them. Here also it says uben habakar in the singular. Says the Gemara, yeah, the kama the matya, each and every one, as it was prepared to eat, where the cooking was finished, Aisha kamayu, the chef went and brought it in front of them. It wasn't all brought together at the same time. Says the Gemara, v'lo tlasa. Why did Avraham Avinu have to make 3? Tiski b'chad. It should have been enough with 1. So Rav Chanan Barava, because he wanted to feed them 3 tongues in mustard, which is a noble men's delicacy and delight, and he wanted to treat them to that, and therefore each one of them, even though tongue is big, you buy it in the store, you think it's going to feed 3 people, you put it, suddenly start cooking it, it shrinks very small. He wanted each one to have a separate tongue, and therefore that's why he slaughtered 3 animals. Now, Amar Reb Tancha Bar Chanila, he says, "Lo'ilam al yishana adam in a minig." A person should always not deviate from the common custom. What does that have to do with what we're talking about? Because Shari Moshe Alamarim v'loy achalechem. Moshe Rabbeinu went up to Shemayim, and for 40 days he didn't eat bread because that's the custom over there. Malach Hasharis yodulamata v'achlu lechem. The ministering angels, they came down here and they ate bread. Says Gemara, you think the malachim really ate bread? No, rather say it appeared as if they ate and drank when in Rome, right? So when vision is put on the gartel. Now, actually, Taisa brings some Seid Eliyah Rabbah that not like those who say nirin ka'echem v'shaisim. Actually, malachim literally ate and drank because of the covenant of Avraham Avinu, which Taisa says obviously disagree with our Gemara over here, which says that they didn't eat. It was a gemacht. They made as if, because that's the minig amokim azay fitmin, and therefore that's, you see that a person should not deviate from the custom. A related idea from Amar Yehuda Merav says, "Kol ma'aseh asa Avraham Avinu, Avram l'malachei hashares ba'atzma." Whatever Avram did for the ministering angels himself, asa Kadosh Baruch Hu l'banav ba'atzma. Kadosh Baruch Hu did for his children himself. But whatever Avram did through an agent, through an intermediary, Kadosh Baruch Hu repaid him exactly as measure by measure, also not direct and only through a shliach. When it says in the pasuk "V'la bakar ratz Avram," that to the cattle Avram ran. So the pasuk says in the midbar "V'ruach nasam es Hashem," that the wind was brought out from Hashem, meaning the slavim, that the meat that they had, Hashem Himself sent it out, which was the meat that Avram, equivalent to the meat that Avram ran to. So the wind, which is like the movement, was also straight from Hashem. When I said that Avram went and he took butter and milk, so it says the pasuk which was also dvash v'chalav. This was Hashem brought down the manna from Shemayim Himself, just like Avram took the butter and the milk himself. And it says that he was standing over them beneath the tree. So the pasuk says, Hashem says, "I will stand in front of you there by the rock," just like Avram stood over, so to Hashem stood over. And it says, Avram went with them to send them away, to send them, on their way. So it says, Hashem also went in front of the Jewish people by the daytime. When it says, Yukach na ma'at mayim, that please let it be taken a little bit of water, which means say that he didn't do it himself. It's in the passive, which means that through an agent. So when Hashem repaid the Jewish people, it was also through an agent. V'kisa batzur, Hashem said to Moshe Rabbeinu, you hit the rock, v'yetzem in the mayim, and let water come out, and the people will drink. That was done through a shliach, because Avram Avinu didn't do it himself. It was also done through a shliach. Which the Gemara says, upliga de Reb Chaim bar Chanina. This teaching disagrees with Reb Chaim bar Chanina. Because Reb Chaim bar Chanina, b'chin ton b'shmal, v'schar shleisha, zachul shleisha. In the reward for three things, they merited to three things. Meaning there were three gifts that were given to them in the Midbar through Moshe and Aharon. In the reward of the butter and the milk that Avraham went to get for the Malachim, zachul month. That's like we said. Okay, that's correct. They merited to the month. This is what differentiates from the teaching we just said. We said that the reward for V'humed Aleim was that Hashem said, Hidni Omer Lefenecha Shom Al Atzur. This teaching says differently. It says, B'schar V'omer Aleim, the reward that he was standing, Avram stood over the Malachim, Zachul Omer Ha'anan. They merited to the clouds of glory which constantly stood over the Jewish people. Like the Pasuk says, B'midbar Yadal, V'anantcho Omer Aleim, and that your clouds stood over them. Then, b'schar yukach nomat mayim, in the reward for that, some water should be taken. Zachul be'edah shel Miriam, they merited to the well of Miriam, which that says Rashi, that is the same as the previous teaching. That's the vehikisa b'tzur. You'll hit the rock. The only thing they disagree is regarding the amad anan as the reward for Amad Aleim. Now it said in the pasuk, yukach nomat mayim. Avraham Avinu said to the malachim, let a little bit of water be taken, v'rachatz ragleichem, and that you guys should wash your feet. And then Vishanu Tachas Eitz, and then you guys will recline beneath the tree. Which means because he didn't want the Avodah Zara to come into his house. Because the Arabs commonly bow down to the dust on their feet. And they appear to him like Arabs. And therefore he says, wash your feet off. And plus I'm not letting you guys into my house. So Amr Rabbi on the Rabbi Shmuel, Amr Lei, they said to him, you're suspecting that we're Arabs? That they bow down to the dust of their feet and therefore you want us to wash it off? You already have Yishmael who came out from you, which he was already accustomed to do that. So don't start giving us, the eyes. It's your own son who does this. Now it says over there in the Psukim over there, which was the precedent for this, which happened before, predicated this, was Vayera Love Hashem Be'elonim Mamri. Hashem appeared to him in the Elonim Mamri, and he was sitting there by the entrance of his tent like the heat of the day. What does it mean like the heat of the day? What is the pasuk saying? So Reb Chaim says, that day, Yom Shlishi Shel Mila Shel Avram Hayo. What we call it the Shlishi Shel Mila, was the third day after the circumcision, which is a very painful time. So Hashem came to be Mevakach Chaylim, to inquire about Avram how he's doing. So Hashem went and took the sun out of its sheath, out of its case, because he wanted the full power of the sun to be shining, that nobody will be traveling on such a day. And the reason why he did this was he didn't want that righteous person to be busy with the guests. If any guests come, Nebuch, he's going to have to be busy because that's his chesed. But if there's no guests, he'll be able to relax. But no one was coming. So Avraham Avinu sends out his trusty servant Eliezer to go outside. See, maybe you could go chapa guy. We want to do a little bit chesed today. Nothing he went out, but he didn't find anybody. Avraham Avinu said, I don't trust you. That's what they say over there in Eretz Yisrael. There's no trustworthiness when it comes to a servant, a slave. So Avraham Avinu himself went out. Chazar Kadosh Baruch Hu, the Koi Bava, he saw Kadosh Baruch Hu standing over there by the doorway. And Heinrich said, that's what it says in the pasuk, Al Nosaver Ma'al Avdecha, which Taisa brings, that here it sounds like that the Shechina wanted to go away from Avraham Avinu, and he's saying, no, don't go away from your servant. Which the Gemara in Shabbos Chav sounds like that because Avraham Avinu wanted to go to greet the guests and to bring them in, he said to Kadosh Baruch Hu, wait until I bring them in, that's what the Gemara darshans, it's greater to bring in guests than to have the divine presence. That's what the Gemara says over there, that also, look how different the midas of Hashem is than from that of a person. By a person, a smaller person cannot tell a bigger person, wait till I come to you. Kadosh Baruch Hu, he's saying, Al Nasaver, don't leave, I'm taking care of the guests. Now, even the Chazam, Once HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw the Ka'asar, that Avram Avinu was bandaging his circumcision, Bashari, and untying it, I said, Lav Arich Ar L'Mekamach. It's not appropriate for me to be over here. And also, Haindach Siv, this says in the Pasuk, that originally it says, V'yisa Einov, Avram Avinu lifted up his eyes, V'yar, and he saw, that there were 3 people that were standing over him. And then it says, V'yar, and he saw, V'yartz across him, and he ran towards them. What does that mean? Were they right there, or did he have to run to them? As it says, first they stood over him. When they saw that he was in pain, they said, it's not really appropriate for us to be here right now. So they walked away, and then they saw them at a distance, and therefore he ran towards them. Says the Gemara, who were these 3 men that appeared to Avram Avinu? Well, the Malachim, Michael, Gabriel, Raphael. Why were these 3 Malachim there? Michael, Shabbalavasa, came to give the Besura, to give the good news to Sarah that she's going to have a baby. Raphael, Shabbalat his Rambam, came to heal Avram Avinu who had the bris milah. And Gabriel, he was going on his way to overturn Sodom. Says Gemara, really? Only one malach went to Sodom? It says in the pasuk, it says that the 2 malachim came to Sodom in the evening. Says the Gemara, because the Azal Michal Ba'adei. Michal went with the Malach Gavriel, which the Midas Hadin, and Michal is the Midas HaChesed. He went with him l'shezeve leloit, to save Loit. And Dekanami, a precise reading indicates that really only one went to overturn Sodom, because the pasuk says vayihapech hazar ma'el, that he turned over these cities. Like Siv vayahafchu, it doesn't say they turned it over. Shmamina, there was only one. The Taisa says, the Masklahu, he says it's a wonder, because in the Medrash says that one malach can't do 2 shlichas. How's it possible that the malach Raphael, who went to heal Avram Avinu, that the malach Michal, who went to give the Besura, also went to save Lot? So he says, no. Michal only did 1 shlichas, meaning he did 1 maisa, he gave the Besura to Sarah, and when he went from there this time, started another shlichus. It's only in one place that a malach can't do 2 things. Now he actually brings that from the Medrash. It actually says that no, Rafal came to save Lot. And actually, healing of Ram is not mentioned. And therefore, he only did 1 thing. Avram Avinu didn't need to be healed. Rafal that came along was doing only 1 thing, saving Lot. But then says Taisus, even if you're going to say that he even came first to heal Avram, it's still considered 1 shlichus. Because healing and saving is the same idea, and therefore that's considered as 1 shlichus. Now, the Rabbi Chanan asks that the Baal Taisus Rabbi Chanan says that it sounds like for the terminology of the pasuk that actually both of them saved him, because it says the men held on to his hand, and it says they took him out of the city. And then it says after that the malach that came to overturn Sodom said, I can't do anything until you come over there. So I thought only one malach saved him. So it says Taisus, both of them took him out of the city, but Michal took him all the way till Tzayir. Gavriel was commanding that they should go quicker. But really, the one that saved him was only one malach. Another malach was overturning Sodom. Another Gemara asks related and says, Maishno legab Avram. What's the difference that by Avram, it says in the pasuk, Kain tasa kasha debarta, that so shall you do like you said, meaning the malachim said to Avram, yeah, you want to bring food, you want to do it, yeah, azavi the zogs, that you should do. Maishno legab Lloyd, what then by Lloyd? It says in the pasuk, is gitin tapei zayin mit aleph, says, he pressed them very much, come to my house, and this and that, and they didn't want to. And they were refusing until they finally acquiesced. What's the difference in the responses of the malachim? From here we learn you can refuse a small person, you don't refuse a great person. Avram Avinu asks, yeah, but I klein them and Shvilite asks, then you can say no. Thank you to any time.